to our conversation about climate justice and youth in the movement for climate justice on this Earth Day. We're so grateful that you're here. And as people are coming into the waiting room, we just want to give people a chance to get into the call. So I'm going to give it a second. But welcome again. Thank you for being here for this conversation. Thank you for supporting our youth, the Youth Leaders Initiative of NCIPL, and for making space for a conversation that is so important on this, the 51st anniversary of Earth Day. And so I will go ahead and get started, give us a little bit of time here. Again, if you're popping into the waiting room, thanks for being here. We're grateful that you're here. But good afternoon. Happy Earth Day. Happy Faith Climate Action Week. It is Faith Climate Action Week. And welcome to today's conversation celebrating Earth Day and youth voices for climate justice. My name is Sarah Ogletree. I am the program coordinator of North Carolina Interfaith Power and Light and our NC Council of Churches Eco-Justice Connection program. And it is truly my honor to be with you during this time of discussion, celebration, and learning on the 51st anniversary of the first Earth Day. We are very grateful that you're here. At this time, I want to invite you to place your name in the chat on either Facebook or Zoom, wherever you find yourself. Let us know where you're calling in from and the name of your congregation or organization, where you live. Just a little bit about you. We would love to welcome you more personally and greet you as you come into this space. We also want to open our time together with an acknowledgement that the land that we live within and depend upon is the stolen land of Indigenous people, taken through violence and colonialism. So where I live in Western North Carolina, I am on the occupied land of the Cherokee. And at this time, we want to invite you to place in the chat the name or names of the Indigenous communities whose land you rely upon now. We know that this is important. We know that this is a part of how we do the work of justice. And if you do not know these names, friends, this is an invitation to learn. The work that we're doing, the work of ecological justice, it requires continuous learning. And it is work that we can do together. So thank you for honoring those communities alongside of us. Today, we will have the chance to hear from leaders of our NCIPL Youth Leaders Initiative, all these wonderful people that you see on your screen. The Youth Leaders Initiative is our youth-led group of middle and high school students addressing climate change through a multi-faith lens of morality within the NCIPL network. And we will also have a chance to hear today from our college interns for environmental and climate justice. We know that youth play an incredible role in this movement. We know about people like Greta Thunberg and Jamie Margolin and so many others. And I'm so grateful to be able to put the spotlight on some of our young youth leaders. In my role within NCIPL, I have the immense privilege of serving as an adult advisor to the Youth Leaders Initiative alongside Michelle Peden of the NC Council of Churches Partners in Health and Wholeness program. And again, I'm just so excited for you, our network, to get to learn more about them, our youth, the work that they're doing, and to get to think about how you can both support the youth within your own lives and also support this group of young people. We will also strive to have a time for questions after this interview of our leaders. So if you think of any questions as our folks are talking, as they're telling their stories, please do drop those into the chat on either Facebook or Zoom, and we will flag them for our Q&A time. So all that said, again, thank you for being here. We'll dive right into our questions. And the first question that I have for our group is I want to give everyone listening a chance to get to know our youth and young adult leaders. So we'll go around and allow you all a chance to introduce yourself, name your connection to and your role in the Youth Leaders Initiative, and also speak to what motivates you to do climate and environmental justice work. So why are you here? Why is this important to you? Who you are, what do you do in YLI, and why is this important to you? And I'm just gonna kind of call on people. So I'll start with Daniel.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Daniel Perrin, and I'm a sophomore in high school in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I've been involved with NCIPL for a while now, and also YLI more specifically for a couple of years as well. I first got involved with NCIPL as part of my bar mitzvah project, and I worked with them to do some initiatives at my synagogue, both some symbolic initiatives and some initiatives to really try to work to cut down their emissions. Then I spent a summer interning with NCIPL in Raleigh, and since then I've also been part of the Youth Leaders Initiative, which is what you're hearing all about today. So most of what I do with YLI involves communications and some event planning and writing, and I love it. I love the people and I love the work because, what could be more important than climate justice? I'll talk more about what motivates me a little bit later on, but really it kind of comes down to that I really value the concept of a place to call home. And so when I do this work, that's what I'm thinking about. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. How about Rishi? I'm just going to go on my screen in the order that I see people. So go ahead, Rishi.
Okay, once again, thank you everyone for being here. So I'm Vishnu Ranabothu, and I'm 16 years old, and I live in Cary and go to Enloe High School. And I'm the current outreach coordinator of YLI, and along Vishnu, who's also an outreach coordinator. And as outreach coordinators, we're in charge of inviting and communicating with new members and youth outside the YLI, and also talk with congregation leaders and their youth groups about activities they can do around sustainability. So other personal inspiration. So it's always exposed to the need to save energy and ice caps are melting, all the scientific facts, and the Flint water crisis, lead being toxic in the water, and all the climate and environmental justice issues. But I always thought the solution was going to be better laws that were going to happen as time goes on. But I realized that these aren't really happening at all. And especially this was sparked because I'm an aspiring medical student. And in a trip to India, I saw the conditions there compared to conditions here in America with our environmental legislation differences. And there was a huge difference. I noticed that America's legislation in the EPA was quickly being repealed. This is changing now with the joining the Paris Agreement and everything, but it's still not where it needs to be. And the US is a global leader, and keeping this momentum is what we need to do. So that's why I'm personally interested in climate advocacy.
Thanks, Rishi. I mean, I'm going to do the thing that I do sometimes and just highlight things that you've said that I'm grateful for. So, Daniel, your work with your synagogue was incredibly beautiful, and thank you for uplifting that. And Rishi, thank you for naming justice issues. Thank you for thinking about intersectionality of health and climate, drawing on your desire to be a medical student, and also naming the Flint water crisis and those environmental justice issues. I learn a lot from you guys all the time, so thank you for uplifting that. Danny.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danny Baena Bustos, and I'm a senior at Meredith College. I'm currently interning with NCIPL. And let's see, what brings me to this work is just, being a daughter of immigrants and a woman of color, it's like work that's very personal to me, especially like in terms of climate justice and just thinking about climate migration and things like that. Yeah, a lot of the work that I've done is on social media with NCIPL. So if you don't follow us, I really encourage you to do so.
Thank you, Danny. Yes, I have learned a lot. Another thing I'm learning from our young leaders is just the value of social media as an education tool, not just as something that is fun, and it is fun, but I'm learning a lot about that. And yes, thank you for naming that intersectionality of immigration and climate migration and the refugee crisis that intersects with the climate crisis. So I'm grateful for that, and grateful for you, Danny. Pratik?
Hi, I'm Pratik Tanikela. I go to Panther Creek High School and I'm a sophomore. I joined YLI pretty recently, actually, because of my brother, and he was one of the founding members of YLI, and he told me how important it is, and I feel that taking care of the environment, because it's our home, and we have to take care of it because no one else will, so we have to do it and put our foot forth and help out everyone. And I think YLI is a very good start to helping the environment, which is why I joined.
Thank you, Pratik. Yeah, I love your kind of intersectional approach there as well, the taking care of the environment and taking care of each other. And also, I just want to give Pratik huge kudos because his first meeting was this week, and then he came to this event and is participating. So thank you, Pratik, for being with us. Ishaan?
Hello, my name is Ishaan Raj. I'm 14. I am in 8th grade and I go to Carnegie Middle School. I'm also pretty new to this whole congregation, and I work on social media with Vishnu. We make like graphics and we post them. And I'm motivated to do climate work because I want to preserve our planet for future generations, and I know that right now it's not really happening, so we have to do it ourselves.
Yes, I also want to give huge kudos to Ishaan, who also just joined and is here helping to lead this event and leading our social media with Vishnu. And thank you for that beautiful vision of caring for the world for future generations. Yeah, absolutely. Tanush?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tanuj Dasu. I'm a 11th grader in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I've been involved with YLI since 9th grade. At first, for the first 2 years, it was a lot more local work, and I worked with Rishi at a local temple to help make it more environmentally efficient. And then I think about a year ago, I started working with the main team at YLI online. So that's pretty much where I've been. And my motivation to do climate environmental work is I've been interested in earth science for as long as I can remember, and what better way to act on that other than working with organizations like NCIPL. Yeah, that's about it.
Thanks, Tanush. You've done incredible work with us. We'll hear more about that soon. But yeah, I love your passion for earth science and pulling that in. Absolutely. That was one of my favorite classes in high school, and certainly helped lead me to this work as well. Noelle?
Hi, everyone. My name is Noelle. I live in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and I go to school at Guilford College. I intern as a climate justice intern this spring. And I'm originally from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, where the climate crisis does a lot of damage despite Haiti not being responsible for the current crisis. So I care about and do environmental work because it is one of the ways that we can tackle, or at least I can tackle, injustices that poor and people of color face, not only throughout the U.S. but right here in North Carolina. I'm also involved in this work because I believe that getting involved is one of the ways that we can challenge systems of oppression, such as colonialism, capitalism, that have caused great harm to the powerless. So yeah.
Thank you, Noelle, for that commitment to justice and the intersectionality as well. Both Noelle and Danny, as our college interns, have just brought a wealth of experience. And I think it's been really cool also to have them in our YLI meetings as additional mentors. So thank you for being here. Vishnu?
Hi, everybody. My name is Vishnu Ranabothu, and I've been involved with YLI for a couple years now. I'm 13 years old, and I live in Cary, North Carolina. I go to Carnegie Magnet Middle School, and it's located in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm part of the NCIPL YLI Foundation, and my job is outreach coordinator and social media coordinator, and I'm an outreach coordinator with Rishi and social media coordinator with Ishaan. And I care about environmental work because without a healthy and harm-free environment, the world and air would be polluted and it would be full of toxins that aren't safe to inhale. I also care about environmental work because there are a lot of issues such as air and water pollution and global warming, acid rain, and wildfires that can be prevented if everyone just followed environmentally safe practices. I love this so much because it's so simple and so easy, and it can also make some of the biggest changes in the world. I got involved in NCIPL YLI because I never really lived sustainably and energy efficiently before I found the YLI. And after finding out how much you can help the world and how much money that you can save by living efficiently and sustainably, I realized that these skills will be with me for life and we have to care for the earth.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you for that call to looking at our own lives and to being honest about the ways that it hasn't always been easy, and how learning has helped us, take part in this movement. That's a beautiful, testimony to this work. And thank you also for bringing up issues like acid rain and wildfires. I mean, we saw some of the most intense wildfires we've ever seen on our West Coast last year, and in Australia. And we know that, those climate impacts are obviously disastrous and deeply sad. And we know that they impact vulnerable communities and marginalized communities most severely. So thank you for naming those pieces. I'm just so grateful and proud of all of you. It's good to be with you. And I am gonna really quickly just kind of pass over to Michelle. You may not be able to see her on your screen, but Michelle is our other adult leader, and she's been really helpful to the Youth Leaders Initiative. So Michelle, I'm going to give you that chance to introduce yourself as well.
I appreciate it, Sarah. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Peden. I am the program coordinator for our Partners in Health and Wholeness program at the North County Council of Churches. I've been working with NCIPL, though, for years, honestly. And I think the question is like, what brought us to this work and what inspires us in this work? And I was like reflecting as everyone was talking, and everyone made such good points. I think that where I find myself now is healing work around, you know, what lets humans make decisions that results in the death and the dying and the suffering of people, and how that is impacted by systemic racism is very similar to the root causes that make us decide, make the decisions that impact the earth, other species, other animals, and then other people. And so I'm really interested in figuring out how to get to the root, to those holes in our soul that are preventing us from living out beloved community. So that's where I'm at right now in this journey.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's beautiful work. And we know that there's a great quote out there by Gus Speth, who was a forestry worker at Yale. He was like the dean of forestry. Sorry, Gus, I don't remember your title, but he talked about how this moment of climate crisis and environmental degradation needs spiritual communities and faith-based communities, because the problems that we're facing are greed and apathy and these kind of moral failings. And so getting to the root of why we are living in such greed, or why we're living in fear or hatred, and addressing that and addressing those systems of oppression is vital. And thank you, Michelle, for uplifting that. Awesome. Well, it's good to be introduced to all of you. Now I'm going to kind of shift a little bit and ask some specific questions of our leaders. And I want to begin with Ishaan and Pratik. Ishaan is going to have to leave us a little bit early, so I want to make sure that they get to answer their questions. So Ishaan, you can answer first, and Pratik, you can answer second. And I want to ask you guys, how are you planning to celebrate Earth Day? I think, you know, when we think about Earth Day, we're thinking about all the things we need to do, the ways that we can save the world. We need to think about that. That's one piece. The other part is, how are you celebrating? So first, how are you going to celebrate Earth Day? And then how might you encourage our network to take action today?
So for Earth Day, I plan on going outside and appreciating the nature around me. Taking action for Earth Day can be as simple as that. There are many ways to celebrate Earth Day, such as planting things, taking care of a garden you have, cleaning up plastic in or around your neighborhood. But at the end of the day, the idea is to keep our planet safe, as well as show our appreciation for it.
I love that, Ishaan. I love the call to be outside and to see the beauty and to be able to feel that. It's so good for us. It's so good for us to be outdoors, and it's so important that we remember the beauty of this world, and that we allow that to help us be motivated in the work. Yeah, so thank you. Pratik?
Yeah, so for Earth Day, I'll be planning on using the 3 R's, which are reducing, reusing, and recycling. Basically meaning that I'll be cutting down on wasting products and I'll start reusing products and also recycling everything that I can. But along with that, I suggest that we all educate ourselves on how to better the planet and better the environment. And planting trees and plants as well, as Ishaan said, and going outside is the most important thing. Like, you could either go biking, you could just go outside and walk, or especially using reusable bags or even reusable water bottles. And today even you can go to get some produce from a local farmer's market and get some food as well. And you can implement all of these things in your daily life, not just today, but every day. And I feel like that can help the environment a lot.
All of that was great. I know that Pratik is a big biker and a runner, so getting outside and doing all of that is certainly wonderful. And then, yeah, reduce, reuse, recycle, reusing, especially if we can reuse things and not throw them away. That is a wonderful thing that we can do. And supporting local farmers, another great thing that we can do, using those reusable bags. We have one of our partner organizations, actually two of our partner organizations, focus on working with farmers. So Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, they're doing great work if you want to work with local farmers and help the sustainable farm movement. And also RAFI, Rural Advancement Foundation International, they're doing great work with farmers in North Carolina as well. So thank you guys. All right, the next question I want to ask is to Rishi. And Rishi founded YLI, I think about 3 years ago. If I'm wrong, Rishi, correct me. But you founded YLI about 3 years ago. Can you just tell us the story of how YLI began, how you began this work, and speak to who we are, our mission and our values?
Yes, first I'll start with the mission statement of sorts. So, or sort of a definition, I guess. So YLI is a youth network focused on educating, inspiring, and mobilizing youth to empower and lead faith and spiritual communities to act on climate. And this is always a big, wordy sentence. So I'll backtrack to the beginning of the whole journey and then work my way up to this. So like Sarah said, I began with NCIPL about 3 years ago at a local church when I was interested in their massive solar energy system. And there I met with Mr. Reed, who works with NCIPL, part of NCIPL, working on, I think on a technical board. And he introduced me to Ms. Tyler, who is here in this call, Sarah and Michelle of NCIPL. I learned about the programs of support and sustainability projects of congregations. And so it started with me doing my own project at a temple I attend. And with this, I realized that everyone on the board was kind of, I'm not taking a jab at age, but they're all very stiff at making changes. And they weren't as flexible as making changes, and delayed it for almost months. So I realized that I was the only one really making a change, and I had people around me who were willing to make a change also. So to harness this energy, I created the Youth Leaders Initiative with support from NCIPL leaders, and to work towards this goal that we were all interested in. And the vision of NCIPL YLI is to bring everyone together and connected, because everyone's connected in faith and protecting God's creation. And we can bring everyone together through a place of worship and turn our small acts into something larger. And so the YLI is paving the way for other youth to do the same and join us on this journey.
That's great, Rishi. I mean, what I'm hearing in that is, I think, one of the best benefits of working with youth, which is helping to mobilize this work and help, breathe new life into the work. I think that it's true. A lot of adult rooms can get kind of stuck in our ways. I'm speaking, as someone who lives in that space a lot. We can get stuck in our ways, and it's really wonderful to have new vision and new life and new energy breathed into those spaces. And that's part of why it's so important, in the climate movement, that we have youth involved, and that youth are leading us, because they're reminding us this is possible. Let's step back a minute and remember that this is possible. We can do this. We can do it together. Thank you, Rishi. I'm grateful for all the things that you bring to this work, and for your leadership, and for your beginning of YLI. I now want to ask Tanush a question. And Tanush, you've been involved in a lot of work that we've done. So can you speak to some of the specific work that YLI has done while you've been involved, as well as the work that we're planning for this year?
Yeah, so as I mentioned at first, I started out locally with NCIPL. So I worked in the local temple, and I also helped give speeches to other congregational groups. So we talked about how these specific groups can get involved with NCIPL and why we are drawn to this work ourselves. And then over the past year, so when I started working with the main members, some of the events, the most notable events that I remember is a town hall seminar that we set up with Damon Seals and Emily Barrett, who are both on the call right now. So we learned about what they do within their local governments, and we were also able to learn what those certain towns are doing to be more environmentally sustainable within their communities. In addition to those, I've also been a part of multiple retreats, and in these retreats, I worked with many other NCIPL members to learn more about the organization itself and plan for the future about how NCIPL wants to move forward this year. And as for this year, we have a good amount of stuff planned. So we plan to focus on local advocacy, such as working towards things such as water access and outreach. And we also want to reach out to as many people as we can in North Carolina, and we want to grow our organization. And right now we're working to promote Faith Climate Action Week to reach out to youth all across the state. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've done a lot of different things, retreats to help reach new youth, internal retreats to help us think about who we are and who we want to be, We had that great event with Damon and Emily. Thank you guys for being here. We had an event with Carl Siegel, who talked to us about composting. And we're continuing through kind of advocacy promotion and Faith Climate Action Week, like Tanush said. Maybe Susanna, you can drop the Faith Climate Action Week link into the chat. Thanks so much, Tanush. All right, so Vishnu, I wanted to ask you a question. You and Rishi, you both oversee our congregational, community, and youth outreach efforts. So can you talk a bit about how people can get involved with YLI? And what do new youth need to do? Or if a congregation is interested, what can they do?
Sure. So new youth can always get involved by just joining in on events such as these and choosing, here, wait, sorry. I have like these things for my braces. It makes it hard to talk. All right, so new youth can always get involved by just joining in on events such as these and choosing whether or not this interests them and if they want to continue this. If the youth is interested, then they can reach out to one of us who are involved in the YLI via email or text like through Instagram, something like that. And we always welcome everybody to reduce their carbon footprint and to live their life in an environmentally conscious manner. And some of the things new youth need to do when they join this program is to let us know what role they're interested in fulfilling and what exactly in sustainability they're interested in. If a congregation is interested, they can send an email to me, Rishi, or Sarah, and we will respond with details as soon as we can. Congregations, youth groups can also start fundraisers for sustainability or do sustainability events, sustainability-based events.
Yeah, so we have had some congregations hold fundraising events for YLI, which was pretty cool. We had some people do some bake sales to support this work. We've also, at our retreats, we had t-shirts that we sold that said, for the love of, did it say for the love of this world, guys? Do you remember? For the love of this world. Thank you, Rishi. They've got them on. Yes, for the love of this world. That was our theme. So we sold those t-shirts and we've done various kind of fundraising. That's certainly a wonderful way to support this work. And then also, yes, new youth, we're always welcoming new youth. And we want to help them find where they can fit, find, where they can do the work that they want to do and be a part of this movement, and how we can also support them in their broader congregations and communities. So thank you, Vishnu. That's awesome. All right, Daniel. So I want to ask you a question specifically about advocacy. You've been involved with YLI over the past few years, and you're passionate about the work of advocacy. That's something that you've brought up a few times. So can you speak to the importance of youth activism and leadership in the environmental movement? And what is the importance of congregations investing in their youth as they strive to address climate change as a moral imperative?
Yes, obviously a great question. So like Sarah said, I've been involved for a couple of years now, and like I also said before, I got involved with NCIPL as part of that bar mitzvah process, which is what taught me a lot about advocacy in general and kind of the importance of that and what it can do. And so since then, I've worked with YLI to do this work and that you've been hearing about, and getting youth of all different backgrounds to work together. And at least part of what we do is a lot of advocacy and work towards that climate justice. And so for me, a lot of it has always been about that advocacy side of it. And I'm really happy that's become one of our top priorities. I've grown up in a family that has always been about the advocacy. I think one of the main reasons I got into climate work in the first place is because my grandfather spent an entire career in New Jersey state politics working for climate legislation and EPA regulations and things like that we're still hearing about today. And he's obviously been such an influence on me as well. So yes, I believe strongly in activism. I think the only thing more powerful than regular activism is when young people specifically get together and fight for our future. This power of youth activism is obviously enhanced when talking about an issue like climate specifically, because youth are the ones who have the most to lose and also the most to gain if we do it the wrong way versus the right way, respectfully. Millions of kids from all around the world are putting pressure on those in power right now, and I believe that this is a clear recipe for success in the future, and we are also already seeing the success. I mean, right now, world leaders across the country are meeting this week for a climate summit, and some pretty good progress has been made, it seems like, at least so far. So slowly but surely, people are responding and we are making progress. And that's in large part because of the advocacy of people like Greta Thunberg and Jamie Margolis and other people we all know about. And so youth advocacy is just, it can be really powerful. And sorry, my computer's making noises. And so, yeah, we need the YLI's efforts to get into synagogues and invest in our youth so that everyone can work together and kind of just, put pressure on people in power, and that advocacy can really work. And those people in power do slowly show signs of, reforming and getting to a better world and better environmental policies and things like that.
No, I think you're so right. And I mean, the power of youth activism, we see that in Sunrise Movement, we see that in Zero Hour, we see that, in Care for Climate, and so many different groups around the world, around our country. Youth really are leading the way. And I think it's the things that you named. It's, having so much to lose and so much to gain. And also having that energy to bring to this movement and demand that we move forward with just and equitable action that's rooted in and ensuring that we have a sustainable and a compassionate and a just future. I'm incredibly grateful for that, Daniel. And I love your uplifting of your grandfather's presence in your life. I think that we all could probably also offer stories of the people who've influenced us to become the people who we are, and remembering that we all have those stories of mentors and family members who play a role and how we show up in this work, I think is a lovely way to not feel lonely in the work and to continue to feel motivated. So I'm grateful for that connection. Well, so we've finished sort of our interview, our formal interview piece of this. Before we move to questions, I do want to just highlight a couple of things. So first, thank you all so much. Thank you to all of our youth, and thank you to all of you who've joined us today. I'm just so grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for the ways that you care and the ways that you want to show up. It's really wonderful to stand in your circle and to be a part of your lives. I also just, in addition to what has been named around how we celebrate Earth Day, yes, let's celebrate, let's go outside, let's be present in the world and remember how the world breathes life into us. And then also I do want to underscore what Daniel's talking about advocacy. I mean, we have various information that we can offer you and your congregations about how you can support the work towards the creation of just and equitable climate policy. So I'm dropping into the chat just a few different links. The first is our Advocacy Toolkit. So this toolkit has various calls to action that you and your congregations can invest in, federal, state, calls to action around climate policy, and then also some resources that can help you think about how you advocate, how you address your representatives, and how you can build relationships with them in a way to really move the conversation forward. So I want to offer that for our congregations and for our folks on the call. I also, again, I'm going to drop the Faith Climate Action Week link. Faith Climate Action Week this year is focused specifically on the connections between food, faith, and agriculture. So thinking about farmers, thinking about sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, and how we can support that with policy, but also with the way that we live our lives and how we support local farmers. It's definitely a great part of this conversation. And then lastly, I wanted to drop into the chat information about the Leaders Summit on Climate that's currently happening. So you can watch those sessions as they're happening and be a part of that process and be a witness to that process. And we certainly encourage that as well. So I just wanted to kind of offer those things up. And then before we move to questions, I also wanted to give our youth a chance to add anything or to respond to each other. So do you guys have anything you want to add before we move to questions?
Well, I mean, earlier when I was talking about the Paris Climate Agreement, I was going to mention the Leaders Summit on Climate, but I guess the link's already out there in chat, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts? It's okay if you don't have any, we can move on to questions. All right, cool. Well, let me look through here and see if we have any questions. Remember, you can ask questions in the chat. There's a lot of love in the chat. You're getting a lot of affirmation. That's always great. Well, one question that I have, folks, and then we'll see if we have more questions come into the chat. One question I have is just, where do you find your hope on days where this work feels hard? Or like when we were pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, we're back in it. But where do you find hope or motivation or strength on the days where you're frustrated? And anybody can answer.
I can come on that real quick. I mean, like you're talking about with the being pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. I mean, that entire kind of that narrative in the country that we were dealing with, and still are dealing with, of kind of, this doesn't matter, this isn't true, that kind of backlash is obviously incredibly frustrating, and takes away a lot of hope that I have, and I'm sure all of us have, for the future. But where we look to, or at least where I look to beyond that, is when things like that are going on, you say, okay, forget about those people. Where else are the opportunities to create change, to reduce emissions in this case, or and for other issues, other things? What are the other sectors of our world, of our politics, of our government, whatever, that we can look to beyond those actions that are taking away opportunity, and say we can cut emissions here, but instead of doing it here, if we're not going to be able to cut emissions here, we can cut emissions there. And so kind of seeing, all right, what's the next step, forgetting about those bad decisions, where's the other place where are the other places we can go and create change?
Kind of looking to the next right thing. How do we pivot? How do we keep doing the work? That's great, Daniel. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? I struggled with my words a little bit.
This reminds me of a similar, but similar but different question, where we asked, what songs do we listen to for hope or art? And I think I saved them somewhere, and I just looked through those conversations and those materials that we discussed that one time, and think about the conversations we had then and how we can work on that now when things aren't going well with what we're doing now. Similar to what Daniel's talking about going to the next thing, trying to keep moving forward.
Yeah, that is a really good question. So on some other webinars that we've done with youth leaders, we've asked the question, what motivates you? And it's similar to the one I'm asking, where do you find your hope? And the way that we framed it was like, what's a song that you listen to that just can like totally change the day? Or like, what's an art, a painting or a poem that really inspires you in this work? And if any of you have an answer for that as well, we can always make a playlist with your Earth Day songs and your climate encouragements. Any songs that really motivate you?
I'm trying to think of songs that have like nature titles that are really
powerful. It could just be something that makes you happy.
Well, I don't really like have any. Well, there's, I guess, there's a type of genre that motivates me, I guess. I guess it's just like, I don't really like. It's like really intense. Like it's kind of like intense, like fast moving.
Fast music. I think that's great. That's great. Absolutely. So Michelle said the artist's setting is beautiful and speaks to her soul when inspiring her to do better. And Susanna says, go for it, Vishnu, dance. So yes, music is great. We did have another question here from Emily Barrett. So Emily says, Will Grant talks about the 4 levels of action. 1 being personal action, 2 being in your family and friend groups, 3 being local government or organizations who you can get a meeting with in a week, and 4 state and federal action. So personal action with your family and friend groups, local government action, and federal action, state and federal. So for you guys, for the Youth Leaders Initiative members, do you have any thoughts about how you can operate on levels 2 and 3? That means how can you operate around your personal kind of lives, your own personal, like what Vishnu was talking about addressing his own life, and how you can also operate in your family and friend group and local government or organizations. Do you guys educate your friends and family? Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to comment. I think Vishnu made some really good points earlier about how, a lot of it isn't, on us or capable of ourselves to be able to solve, but some of it is. And I think taking that responsibility and kind of committing to it, not just to, for me, it shouldn't just be me going on a Zoom and telling other people to do something. It should be, I have to go back downstairs and recycle this, or, use less water or something like that. Making real tangible actions really does make a difference. And kind of more about local government. I mean, we had that webinar back in 2020, and we have, both speakers on it here today, which is very cool. And I think I learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure everybody learned a lot about how, even with their obstacles to local government making progress, there are some really important things that local government has done recently, especially when there's been a lack of federal action or even state action. Local government kind of comes in and says, this is what our city is going to do, and this is how we're going to cut our emissions, and hopefully other people will follow. And it just kind of sets the tone for everything. So I definitely am a big believer in that kind of thing.
I think engaging locally can be vital, or it is vital. So it can be vital. It's incredibly vital for us to create the world that we need. Anyone else have thoughts on how to engage with your family, friends, and local government?
Yeah, so I'll go. When it comes to local family and friends, I think we've all worked in our communities and in our homes one way or another just to get involved in the environment. And there's not much I can say that it's something that we've all experienced at one point in our lives, just trying to do stuff locally in our own homes, in our own neighborhoods. And then when it comes to local government, that's where organizations like NCIPL come in, and that's by coming together, that's how we can make a change on a bigger level. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Emily said in the chat that local government action does not happen without people saying it is important. So we have to say that it's important, and that's part of the role that we play. And then we support our local government in making the right decisions. So absolutely. If there's any other thoughts on this question, then Rishi, were you going to go?
Oh yeah, I just want to extend on what the news is saying. So yeah, like I said, that we come together to do it, because I think local government is not something that, even if it is lower than state level, it's still not something you have to do alone. And I guess personal experience, recently I was on a call with the Poe Health Center here nearby in Raleigh, and they're holding an event where they were sending a letter to every single state official in the near area. So just as a group, we were all communicating with the state officials and inviting them to a call based on smoking and health and that type of thing. So it's a group effort, and it's not something you have to do alone, and it's more impactful if you do it together as well.
Well, we had another question in the chat, and this is, what do we do as adult allies? How can we best support you? What do you as youth leaders need? When have you not been supported, or and how can we support you better?
I think that since we've been talking a lot about kind of places of worship and kind of investing in those youth, I would say that the most powerful support that can happen is kind of just the reinforcement and empowerment that happens. I don't think there needs to be any kind of material support or anything like that, but I do think that kind of sometimes adults say things like that kind of demean the power that youth can have. And so if there is a reinforcement that work that we're doing is really good and important, then that kind of can promote more youth to step in and do that work.
Absolutely. I think the kind of the response of you're too young to understand is really frustrating. And we know that youth are grounded in this work. The youth that I work with, you guys and others, you're as educated, if not more educated, on climate than most adults I know. You are incredibly well informed and ready to have these conversations. And so absolutely making space for the conversation, making space for your expertise, and acknowledging the gifts that you bring to that space, that you do bring gifts to that space. Any others on that question?
Yeah, I mean, on the topic of if we don't act now, it's going to be too late to act. I remember hearing a quote, I'll paraphrase it, from Greta Thunberg, that she was told that is her climate advocacy, she should grow up and become a climate scientist. But then she argued back, saying that by the time she gets to college, the Earth's already going to be halfway down the drain. So making action now and having support, and if we don't have the knowledge and resources, being able letting us access the knowledge and resources that we need, instead of saying that we can't, and enabling us to do so. Of course, it's not an issue from all adults. Just so, yeah.
Sure, we're not all bad, right? Some of us are all right. Yeah, but I think you're right. Connecting people with the resources they need. I mean, one of the things that groups like NCIPL and other large environmental organizations and social organizations have to offer is their network and their structure. And so being able to help connect youth leaders to that network and that structure and the resources that come with it is certainly, I think, one of the ways that adult leaders can support youth leaders and can validate, the wisdom that you bring to a space, by making sure that you have input and you have an opportunity to help us lead and have access to those opportunities that we have access to. Yeah, Daniel says a lot of us are all right. I appreciate that, Daniel. Thank you for that. Some of us adults are okay. So we have another question from Bill Gretsch, and we can maybe frame this in a couple different ways. So let me pull it back up again. Okay, so Bill asks, how is IPL helping youth who are making decisions about their futures, as well as adults who are contemplating career changes to develop a career in improving climate change or addressing the climate crisis, generating and distributing power without creating CO2, like those kinds of climate solutions? So how can and how is IPL helping us think about our career choices? This might be an interesting opportunity to just have all of you think about your own kind of career interests and how these conversations and these resources are helping you consider, the intersections that there might be in that work.
Yeah, this one actually hits pretty close to me. So I think, so I've come to the point of high school where I have to actually start thinking about what I want to do next. So this fall, I'm gonna have to start applying for college and all that. So I think working with NCIPL has definitely made me realize that one potential career option that would work for me is working in public policy, environmental science, and something related to those fields so that I could eventually work and make an even bigger difference than, so it has helped me in a really big way in helping me look for career choices and college choices.
I asked that question because the government is hoping to throw $2 trillion at infrastructure. It will change our society as much as the space program changed it or the development of the atomic bomb changed the world. This is absolutely huge. If every high school counselor is not figuring out how to steer kids into that and prepare them, I mean, this is good. These are where they're going to be the new jobs are, and the old jobs are already disappearing. And so, and particularly adults whose jobs disappear. I mean, how is IPL helping, or other people going to exploit it, like the folks who want to make a lot of money?
Well, I think, speaking as our IPL representative on the call, I think, one of the ways that environmental organizations are hoping to benefit from this kind of legislation, is through the grants and, and the money that will come to support this kind of work, to support climate mitigation and to support climate resilience and adaptation, and ensuring that small organizations and BIPOC-led, Black, Indigenous, and impoverished community members are being funded to address the climate crisis, and that it's not only going to large, predominantly white-led organizations. That's certainly a piece of this, is that we want to make sure that communities are funded to address the work that needs to be done, and that we are funding the work equitably across the board. So advocating for that, Bill, I think, is a part of it, and certainly also, for all of our youth and for people like me and others on the call, ensuring that we also can be a part of these solutions in whatever way that makes sense for us. We also did have one more question, and we're getting close. Oh yes, and also Susanna, Bill just wrote a response to you in the chat, so that's great. Maya had a question, and I think Noelle, this is a really good one for you to chime in on, and then maybe others as well, whoever else might want to chime in on. But this says, do you as an organization or personally, so we might have differences of opinions, believe we can solve the climate crisis within capitalism? One of those good hard hitters.
I can go. I do not think so, because capitalism, like the model, is all about like exploitation, and I don't think we're gonna get anywhere. But I do think that if we want change to happen, like in the current system, we're gonna need people that work like within the system, outside of the system, and against the system. So I think we need like different roles that people can be part of. But yeah.
I love that naming of like the different kind of ways that we can address systems of oppression like capitalism, and acknowledging that, you know, some people are going to be within the system, but they can push against it. Some people are going to be outside of the system and working in those spaces, and just figuring out what your gift is and where you're located and how you can help us transition to a more just and equitable system, I think is vital. Does anyone else want to weigh in?
I think I have a more naive view that we can, but it's mostly focused towards, because I know I used to read a lot about solar energy and how it would never work on the market. But then they kept developing more and more economic versions, and while it's still not very feasible, like I always said, it's all about more exploitation, more maximum profit. So I believe that with the technology advances, and I know technology is kind of antithesis of environment, but as we develop, we're going to grow more technology, and I believe that technology growing in a cheaper way that's more environmentally sustainable is probably the best route that's possible through capitalism, because it's very hard to believe that we're going to go not backwards, but less technology, but also cleaner technology is a better alternative to a future of unregulated exploitation.
No, absolutely. I think part of what you're naming too, Rishi, is, you know, there has to be that transitional moment as well. And being able to uplift arguments about how, you know, how transitioning away from fossil fuels can be economically beneficial. That's part of how we get a lot of people on board for this work. And so I think naming that and acknowledging that, and then also holding it in tension with the truth of the exploitations of capitalism, you know, against so many of us. I just think there's a lot of tension here, right? And I love this question, Maya. Thank you for taking us to a deep place. Any other thoughts there before we wrap up, guys? All right. Well, I think, you know, I guess what I'll say in regards to that question is just that I think that that our work, particularly as people of faith in this movement and people committed to justice, calls us to truth-telling and to radical truth-telling. And we have to acknowledge the ways that people's lives have been degraded, and the ways that Black and Brown populations, Black and Brown people, immigrants, and so many others have been devalued by systems of capitalism. And we have to do the work of justice. We have to do the work of intersectional justice. And so that's going to mean speaking hard truths and also holding tension in the ways that our work calls us to work within and outside the system, right? We have to transition to a more just way, and that requires work in both places. Guys, I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm so grateful for the way you showed up today. I'm grateful for all of you who joined our conversation. Happy Earth Day. Any final thoughts that anyone wants to offer before we leave?
I would just say thank you so much for everyone who came here. It's really nice to hear myself and other youth leaders get to share about ourselves and about the work that we're doing. And please come to one of our other events at some point soon.
Yeah. And I will say too that we have meetings twice a month, online virtual meetings. So though these youth predominantly live in the Triangle, there are other opportunities. These are all virtual opportunities. So, you know, the vast majority of our meetings would be accessible to people all over the state. If you know youth in other parts of North Carolina that might want to participate in these conversations, do let us know. You can reach out to me at programs@ncipl.org to get in touch with these guys and to do this kind of work. We are, again, really, really grateful. And I do hope that you have a blessed Earth Day and that you can go forth from this place with the energy that you need to do good and to be filled up by the world. So happy Earth Day. Thank you all so much. And we hope to see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.